few people arriving on bikes. My name, a few familiar faces here, but not all of you. So my name, for those of you who don't meet, is Martin Sherry. I'm neither a poet nor a Viola da Gamba player. I am a scientist, but I'm a trustee of Transition Blackheart. And before we get going with this afternoon's performance, I wanted to say a few words about how this event came about. And also a few words about Transition Blackheart, for those of you who don't know about it. So the organisation is a charity concerned with some of the big sort of global issues that are facing us, things like climate change, loss of wildlife, and resource depletion. And our view is that society's focus on possessions and wealth makes it harder to deal with some of these big problems, but conversely we're sometimes paying less attention to the things that are actually more satisfying, but less damaging. So things like friends, family and community. So our agenda is to try to make it easier for people to buck that trend in the hope that we might see a transition to a more sustainable black iron. So we do that through the community markets, giving people a chance to buy local food and crafts in a social setting, through the Black Iron Repair Cafe, which is helping people extend the life of stuff that they have by repairing it, rather than chipping it out, through the Black Iron Library of Things, which helps people borrow things rather than buying new things. We also employ a community energy officer who is helping support people in making their homes warmer and reducing their fuel bills. But we don't have any expertise in hosting concerts. So you may be wondering what on earth we're doing here today, and some of our trustees have wondered the same thing, to be honest. But a few weeks ago we received an email from Sarah Small, and she explained that she cycles with her instrument to highlight the environmental impact of conventional touring. And she's also wanting to highlight the importance of live music in rural areas and community resilience in the face of climate crisis. So metaphorically and possibly literally, as you can imagine, that was music to our ears. We also knew a more local cycling poet who has some experience of working with musicians, and we thought maybe the two of them could be interested in collaborating. So that was our starting point. But it then took the energy and determination of one of our trustees, Peter Moffat, who I'm sure some of you will know or have known, to actually make that happen. Sadly, Peter suffered from a sudden bleed on his brain and died during the run-up to today's concert. He'd been a TBI trustee for 12 years. He was a passionate advocate for action on climate change and the loss of wildlife. He managed a website, organised numerous events, and was part of the team delivering our annual Potato Day and Garden's Question Time. This event would never have happened without his enthusiasm and drive, and he'll be greatly missed, and we all offer our sympathy to his widow, Marion. But this afternoon is going to be a huge lot of fun, I think, largely due to Peter's efforts. And we're going to be treated to two sets with a break for refreshments in between. So for the first set, I'm delighted to introduce Caroline Burrows, who is from Comity. She's a published poet, performer, writer and teacher. This is her bike. And she's fresh from a bell drum performance with a cycling tuba player, who you thought? Caroline.
Hi, so I don't know everyone heard this song, so thanks for coming out and thanks for including me in this. It's lovely to be included. Yeah, I have to say, I'm not from Cromarty, I'm an incomer. But I was based in Bristol and Lancaster and lots of other places for a long time, but I've made it my home now. So we're going to get about 40 minutes of poetry, and then Sarah's going to come up and we're going to do a combined piece. Then we've got the important bit, which is the tea and cake. And then Sarah and I will open with a poem together, and then it'll be Sarah doing her set. So I hope you enjoy what we're doing. A few years ago I did a couple of poetry tours by bicycle. I wasn't carrying a massive instrument, though I had paper, so hats off. So this first poem is a bit about what it's like being what I call a medieval bard on two wheels. It's about cycling round the West Country. I cycled around the West Country, a bike bard on tour, performing my poetry. I started at my local bike shop in Bristol, then on to Somerset, past the dragons sleeping in Warminster Hill. I found an albatross and an ancient mariner, saw Jupiter and Antares out being a stargazer. I heard shanties sung on Watchet seashore, watched wagtails while camping up high on Exmoor. The Linton and Lynmouth Railway took me up a cliff top. That was a relief. Looking down was a 500-foot drop. In my cold tent, I made a blanket from an unfolded OS map. Stayed in a B&B, run by a Basil Fawlty, without the humour. That was crap. I found it hard to say goodbye to a statue of Tarka the otter, was greeted to Lundy Island by a seal in the water. A vandal seagull stole my porridge and ripped a hole in my tent. Then a shrew moved in. I wanted to see wildlife, but that was not what I meant. I told poems in bike shops, campsites, Coleridge's cottage, a ferry, and a village hall. There was wind and rain and even fog, but also sunsets galore. The story's not over. That's only part of my journey. But I had quite the adventure, cycling round the West Country. Thank you. I'm sure Sarah is experiencing that more at the moment on her extensive tour. So quite often if I do a bike tour, I usually sort of do my own sound and put together locations for stuff I'm interested in. So one tour I did when I was living in Lancaster, I realised there were quite a few locations in the northwest of England associated with the poet, the World War I poet, Wilfred Owen, who's my favourite poet. I'm in love with a man who's over 100 years dead. But the reason I love his poetry, and he got me into poetry, is because they're written like films. You can follow the story of this horrific World War I experience, but they're beautifully constructed if you go into it, but they're accessible, so that's genius as far as I'm concerned. So I went off on this bike tour to find these locations to do with young Wilfred before he was the tragic war poet. And I met a ridiculous amount of fellow Wilfred Owen enthusiasts, and that's really what this is about. My bike's fully loaded, my own pack mule, a pilgrimage of Wilfred Owen poetry, riding south between the Pennines and the Irish Sea. I set my sights for distant Liverpool. You can't miss it, says a man. I ask for directions. Casting his curse, I get lost different ways, till I skirt Leyland, where tanks were once made. I'm relieved I've survived it through Preston. Spring lambs bounce around flat fields in the Ribble, near two crows ganging up on a baby squirrel. A B road takes me over 6 screaming lanes to a Scouse bus honking with offensive disdain. In Birkenhead, a statue called Futility shows a man with his head in his hands who sat, with a wreath of paper poppies in his lap. The bronze remains dull, although it's sunny. Expecting a veteran, I meet a musician who went to the B.I. Wilfred Old School. Only a wall remains where a cruel head caned kids for breaking archaic rules. In his Wilfmobile, he shows me locations. Did you know that a famous poet lived there? People living inside couldn't care. Then it's back to the Wilfred Owen Museum, hearing how he's adapted poetic rhythm into a Wilfred Owen musical. Near Chester, I rest in a cyclist's cafe, where a roadie shows me a safer greenway, past the cemetery, where rows of soldiers fill uniform graves, standing to attention. Despite the forecast, there's miles of cold wet stuff, but warm showers greet me at Oswestry from members of the cycling community. There's Wilf's birthplace, another statue, an exhibition, a plaque, a park in the church where he prayed. A Wilfred lemon and poppy seed cake was made by the librarian, second place in a bake-off. I wait by a country field as cows are unloaded. One runs bellowing, it's separated. In another truck is its baby calf. It's quieter when I reach city grass outside Shrewsbury Abbey, whose bells, when they were ringing, war's end. That's when Wilfred's mum got news he died. In a pub B&B, I'd stop cycling. In the bath, the acoustics sound great being read. Wilfred Owen by Richard Burton on YouTube before bed. That's my imaginary journey with Wilfred Owen beside me. He was there. This next poem, sometimes I get off my bike and go a walk, and then have lots of anxiety about being on my own without my bike. This poem's a wee bit about that. So I was visiting friends in Bronte country, because everything should have a Wuthering Heights connection at some point in life. Maybe folks saw that we did a Wuthering Heights Day in Coromity last month for charity. So I was visiting friends in that part of Yorkshire, and I was going off to find what is called the Hitching Stone. So the folklore behind this stone, it's nothing to do with getting married. The Hitching Stone is this massive stone that folklore says was outside a witch's house on a hill, and she didn't like it, so she hitched it up and flung it to the next county. So that's why that stone's there, and it's not from that area. So in stone speak, a non-local stone is called erratic. And I already said that I'm an incomer. In Yorkshire, if you're an incomer, you're called an off-Cumden, so you need that for this. And this is called A Woman Walks to the Hitching Stone on Her Own. Yorkshire friends give me a lift up the tops, where they drop me and my bike off alone. Near monumental salt and pepper pots, I start my search for a less chiselled stone. Google guides me to a fence by a farm. I park my two tarmac, loving wheels there, lift the latch, step from gravel to grass, met by 3 shorn sheep that just stare. They bleat, then bolt, but I'm jittery too. What if there's a bull? I nearly backtrack. The sheep skirt a muddy gash in the earth. I follow, outcast from their woolpack. The clumpy grounds, carpeted between stars, swag the moss on a bog. Will I get stuck? Then there's long grass and me in long shorts. Does Lyme disease lurk from ticks that suck? Though it's downtrodden, some grass is lighter. My friends taught this of Cumden how to see the narrowest of hints for finding my way. I follow faint footsteps tentatively, so I don't tumble down drainage ditches or non-proverbial rabbit holes. The prescribed route is an obstacle course, a morass of moorland bound by fence poles. Does my sportive jacket, my streaming hair, stand out to more than a hovering crow? Will I cross paths with a fellow walker, fell runner, mad farmer, a weirdo? A distant shape interrupts the skyline. I squint. It's a tree. I turn face the right way. Between bulging grey sides and sodden greens, it stands on uplands clear as a clear day. But first, there's an angry wire waist high. I clamber over one bit that's barred free, to then find a rambler's gate further on that would have made this part less cross-country. Slick rocks masquerading as steps are next. I go slowly, my boots have metal cleats. I manage not to slip and get to the top, where my eccentric, wandering self meets the erratic grit of the hitching stone. The huge glacial blocks of mystery, bothy sides with a gap like a window. Why is it here? The same can be said of me. My brave return to civilization is met by more than the sheep's wary stare. I step through the threshold, click the gate shut. The farmer shouts, "You can't leave your bike there." I don't know if you can notice, but I'm a walking repair shop, as is my bike. And a couple of years ago, I was kind of touring around for a couple of years, so all my stuff was in storage and falling apart. My camping mat was needing inflated at least 3 times a night, which was getting frustrating. So I was in Nottingham and I was going down the local knit and natter group in the library. And unfortunately, my uncle, my godfather, died suddenly at the time. But it was quite a nice wee thing I inherited from him. And under his stairs in a suitcase, there was an entire suitcase of neatly folded bags for life, because I think every time he went to the shop, he had good intention and bought one, came back, put it in this pile neatly, went out, forgot, bought another one. So I ended up making this sleeping mat, which is much heavier than a thermarest. I've now got a second-hand one off of the Yorkshire mate. But this is a crocheted yarn, plastic yarn, and it's very warm, it's very comfortable, and I still take it some places with me. So this is it's a bag for life, and then some not uncles in mind. So I've got a poem about it. It's called Upcycled Number 1, the Clarn Camping Mat. Take a lot of old plastic bags, cut into strips of long looped rags, tied together, make balls of plarn, then get down the library for a yarn with a group that knit and natter as their needles click and clatter. As this cyclist learns to crochet a camping mat for nights away, that is one way to repackage a bed from upcycled baggage. If anyone wants to see it after. So the next 2 poems are to do with social commentary, so they're a bit heavier hitting, but I don't see any juniors here, so I think that's okay. This first poem is from when I lived in Bristol. It's the first poem that ever got picked for something that I nearly didn't send in, because it doesn't paint Bristol in a good light. It's an amazing city, but this is about something that's not so great, but it got chosen by the Bristol City Poet for Bristolians to send pieces in. And my tutor that I used to go to evening class after teaching, he was called Carmichael. He passed away in COVID, but he was a brilliant teacher because I showed up and told him all this. And I said, but I shouldn't send it in because it's no good and it's not in a good light, blah, blah, blah. And he just looked at me and said, they're asking for poems about Bristol. And I went, yes. And you've got a poem about Bristol? And I went, yes. And he went, what are you waiting for? Send it in. So he taught me to get out my own way and just have a go. And that was really important. So this is Junkies in the Underpass. A cycle quickly past the junkies in the underpass. Their dealer stands dead centre, a white man dressed in black, astride a bike with no lights, this underworld his stage. Evening, prays this king of short, sharp pricks. As I ride wide of him, pedalling his ship, to two locals laid low between the broken glass and bricks. His shout carries a glint, like the water in the bottle, and the tarnished metal spoon I spy left at pedal level, a scene waning like the moon. Yellow light reveals them huddled beneath the underpass's mosaics, which depict a long history of most of Bristol's trades. This current exchange excluded, and the sugar, and the slaves. Graffiti scrawls across the pictures, letters and words, all strung out. Not street art, not a Banksy, just a public place to face, or an update representing this exact time and space. This next one's another. One of the first poetry commissions I ever got was down in Bristol for a mental health museum called Glenside Hospital Museum, and it shows the history of mental health care, so you can see the progression and what came before certain things and why it's better than it was. So that particular commission was to do with suicide awareness and prevention. And usually every year I do something to try and raise money for that as well, which is why we all dressed up as Kate Bush in Cromarty a month ago and danced to Wuthering Heights to raise money for Jean's support group. But this next poem does come with a trigger warning, so if people want to go to the bathroom or duck out, don't want a heavy-hitting poem on a Sunday afternoon, that's absolutely fine. But it's to do with that topic, and it's to do with the bridge and what happens on the bridge. But the reason I say it is because it's got a positive message of why it's important to talk about it. So I hope you'll don't mind doing this. There's a bridge connects the north and the south by a city whose name in Gaelic means mountain. In a house on the south side, a new friend makes a comment about the folks who end themselves via that bridge, via the firth. He isn't unkind, he talks of rebirth. He doesn't joke or say the word jumper or moan of getting stuck bumper to bumper, of having to divert round the long way about the inconvenient delay. He says, none of that, but I can tell. He lacks understanding just how unwell someone is when their mental health's gone wrong. It's not to do with being weak or strong. But this friend's not meaning to sound offhand, so I feel braver in taking a stand. After our talk, he rides some of my route over the river by the fast commute. On the bridge we pause, watch the setting sun, cycle a few miles, Then our day out's done, and he turns, we go our separate ways. For me, today's been one of the good days. A few years since thoughts invaded my head that kept saying I should make myself dead. Back then, I would avoid such a great height, but not dare to look down in case I might. When I'm back home, I see his text message. There was an incident on the bridge. He'd stopped where we watched the setting sun and saw there, sitting alone, a woman. He stayed with her till the police arrived. They phoned him later to say she survived. I told him he'd done a really good thing, and then he thanked me for explaining how someone can't run on a broken leg or think straight if they've a broken head. They're struggling because they're in mental pain, with too many thoughts rushing in their brain, like radio stations competing to be heard, volumes static or scrambled and blurred. Maybe one future day, or month, or year, she'll also speak up despite any fear, and help someone she's met to understand, will then give someone else a helping hand. That bridge connects more than the north and south. It's formed by words spoken with a kind mouth. Thank you. That's the social commentary heavy stuff over with. Are you ready for a poem about sewing? This top's old, and it's just another wee upcycling poem. This top's quite old. I love astronomy. I spend a lot of time staring up. I'm going to fall in a pothole one day staring up. I'm sure that's how I'm going to go. But my landlady's cat in Lancaster kept clawing it, so there's lots of holes in it. So I thought I can turn them into constellations. So this is when black holes become stars. Some ancient civilizations believed that the blazing heavens could be perceived through the pin-pricked holes of a domed night sky. The stars viewed differently in their mind's eye. On my bit of earth, 21st century, my blacktop seeking haberdashery, also strewn with small holes and threadbare, it's 15 years old, in need of repair. A needle turns black holes into gold stars, backstitching blue lines maps out avatars, spelling out stories from mythology. My top's adorned with Greek cosmology. The tale of Cassiopeia vain, of cursed Medusa by Perseus slain, and like Andromeda saved from strife, my old top's given a new lease of life. Started a bit later, didn't we? Right, okay. So this is the heartbreak section, which used to be called the love section, but has been pointed out to me that I mostly deal in heartbreak. So I was entangled with a musician who wrote quite a lot of really lovely songs about me that I don't listen to anymore. And he said the irony of writing a song for someone was that by the time it actually got properly recorded or released, that relationship's over. Which is true. It gave me material for a poem, which is much better, and put on the Charles Cosley website, which is pretty good. So this poem makes mention of Sylvia Plath, who you shouldn't really read when you're in heartbreak, but nevertheless, and a wee mention of Ted Hughes as well. It's called Heartbroken and Hungover in Oxfam Books and Music. broken and hung over in Oxfam. Neither a safe state to be in amongst the shelves where I bought you that book, the one about guitars and Zen. I browse what's now called pre-loved poetry, while a song makes me feel tortured. Donated Juliet is in dire straits. Everything in here is unwanted. I find a napkin in my bag just in case the rising tide of tears overflow, as each book mocks me with cruel verses I read differently not long ago. I fight the urge to rip out the pages, scrunch them up and set them alight. Such behaviour in a charity shop might feel good, but wouldn't be right. I scan for editions by Sylvia Plath. None. Her works don't get regifted. But 2 copies of Crow perch on the rose. Ironic, text get discarded. To try and distract myself to not cry on the napkin, I write in a scrawl, because the notebook you gave me with roses on are shut out of sight in a drawer. Back home, I transfer this into that notebook. Poetic justice, don't you think? The dam breaks, the rose pages get watered, and black petals are made from blurred ink. So, right, I've got 2 more poems with me, and then Sarah will come up and we'll start doing a poem together. So this next poem combines an ex-partner who kept fibbing, and it's about that. But it also links in with upcycling. So you need to see these. These need still everything. Once you start repairing stuff, it never stops. This is called The Joy of Socks. I was once wowed by a hot date whose woolly socks looked beyond great. Scottish socks on an Englander, toes clad in intrigue and wonder. His kilted hose darned with the red thread played footsie that got me in bed. His fashionable style wasn't fast. That man enjoyed making things last. The ethos under how he dressed was one big reason which impressed. With vocabulary trending, a love for visible mending. The time came when my socks were thin, but now they'd be safe from the bin. Holes he could teach me how to fix if he showed me his sewing tricks. One couple trying something new, the joy of socks uniting two. So having been led to believe that my boyfriend could darn and weave, I asked for a night-long session to give my old socks a freshen. His response delivered grave shocks. Oh no, my mum repairs my socks. Sorry? No, my mum repairs my socks. I gave him a look of dismay. That's when our love began to fray, as he tried and failed to defend his false talk of make do and mend to match my views dyed in the wool as a tactic used on the pull. High time for my feet to depart with holy socks and broken heart. I find true ways for me to darn without being spun his daft yarn. It gives my mum something to do, that from a man aged 52. Those old socks of mine travelled far to a welcoming Highland bar. The proper sessions in that pub was where a lunchtime knitting hub of local women intertwined to craft while others supped and dined. Their group made things with skill and flair. Not one sun socks did I see there, as each brand new week came and went, and I repaired each whole event. Now my footwear's visible threads I wear with self-sufficient treads, and that is called the joy of song. I think that song leads the menopausal revolution. So this last one I'm going to do myself. I wrote after a couple of not bad, but ridiculous relationships. So one winter solstice, my landlord, who I was renting the room from, thought I'd lost my mind because I was sitting outside in the garden on a plastic chair with a woolly hat on a candle, contemplating a ritual on how to choose better romantic partners. And I sat there staring at this candle and I thought, what am I doing wrong? You know, I'm not taking good care of things here. And I thought, what do I actually take good care of? And it's my bicycle. So I wrote myself a self-help poem. If my heart was my bicycle, I wouldn't give it away. I would leave it with those I trust care for it the right way. It's precious and needs safekeeping. My bike I'd not mislay. If my bike has to wait outside, I lock it somewhere bright. It doesn't feel left out in the cold with other bikes in sight. My bike's quite a sociable soul when conditions are right. But it knows the key combination. Hearts get weighed down by locks. Chains misused to shackle free will, they're romantic roadblocks. Free wheels spin links which pull together. Bikes get this paradox. My bike avoids certain terrains, rocky roads are too rough. They'll upend a cyclist quick as ice, that smooth, slick, nasty stuff. If my bike goes down suspect roads, it knows when is enough. You see, my bike has traversed frontiers, but respects boundaries. When others choose to run red lights, those warning signs it sees. My bike's not thrown off balance by bad bearings such as these. Good wheels are the ones that stay true. My bike accepts no less. Loose spokes warp, twist and dissemble despite what they profess. It steers clear of tension seeking. Spokes snap from excess stress. So if Cupid's errant arrows pierce tires with his bad aims, I'll now fix flats and ride away far from his funless games. Tires filled with breaths of fresh air support both our frames. I'll apply this bike's psychology next time love tries to strike. It shows my mind, body and soul what real love should feel like. I'll know who's right to share life cycles with if I treat my heart like my bike. Now we're going to do a piece together. It's about one of the things I love about living here is all the nature. So if I'm out on my bike, I quite often see red kites, sometimes a buzzard. There's rumour of a sea eagle at the South Sutter. But the red kites, I just love them. But they still have quite a difficult life, and this poem's about that. peat-tipped feathered fingers flutter in a fair wind, a forked tail, a curved beak, a red kite on the wing, arms outstretched on cirrus, a silhouetted sign, a bow and barbed arrow, or a bird crucified. She soars north from her nest, woods in and chill and dew. Ash-white primary plumes fly like palms raised for peace, now protected, not past some profitable pest, when her kind's outcast quills were killed near extinction. Her new fledglings have flown, the third from her 5 springs. Her second brood still swoop in their 7th summer, but pellet and poison took that poor pair, her first, lives lost even before autumn's light equalised. Her tail flicks, she veers from the firth's fossil finders, romantics rapidly replaced by rusting wrecks, like garish guillotine, gigantic red shank legs. She glides past steel girders, her wings glow burnished gold. With haste over heathlands, cleared of holes, tree and stone, many a mouse meal found in those moors, greens and moles, safe ground for sheep to graze, but gross graveyards for grouse, where hawk or kite are caught in the game's crossfire. She flies through flow country for freer latitudes, at Skitton's fractured flags and forgotten airfield, starlings perch on parade on parallel wires, their slow whistling salute for a glider's lost souls. Fiercer winds are funneled through the coast's frontiers. She streaks past the swilky slogwa of Norse oars until Orkney's old head ends the open water. A sea eagle ascends above an exhumed tomb. Both birds back from the brink, but bitter gratitude harbours stormy crosswinds screech down Stromness's street. Its morbid museum curates a last pair's mate, a sad lesson displayed, the great auk stuffed, snuffed out. She recalls her kite mate, their courtship ever long, talons locked together in flight, twisting turn. A bowstring is drawn back, a wooden yew-bow bends. She arcs high braced for home in the howling dooley. The world blurs underwing, though weary flying white. Her chest beats strong seeing, Strathpether's Pictish stone, with a raptor revered so near her roost and rest. One auburn feather falls, an autumnal leaf flesh. In bold, black, white and red, a symbol, a bullseye, shows a speed limit seen as a target to set. A small bumps barely clocked or sound like a bag popped. The truck drives, the kite stops, spies the easy pickings. The arrow is released on rabbit-made roadkill. She overshoots her nest, for mate she plucks and shreds. And focused on her feast, feet fly over feathers. The kite struck by a car, left for dead, food for crows. together named Sarah. Do her sing. Thank you very much. Sarah together, and then and Sarah's bike, and then I'll get off the stage and continue with Sarah. So this next poem was a commission to a Triodos band, which is based in Bristol. They're an ethical band, but we thought the topic of it works quite well for what Transition Black Isle's doing as well. So this is a sonnet for Triodos / any eco-friendly company that wants to do. The earth breathed deeply beneath windy hills. Rainlets flew, water fell, a river grew. Engines swam, fish exchanging air through their gills. On the banks, trees laid roots, drank in the view. Displaying branches of banks, their leaves sent oxygen back to the sky, where birds' lungs sang songs to be sung, and on each day went. Each of those who gathered heard the wind's tongues teaching how to plant and grow energy, harvests from sunshine, air, and water fed into homes which built a community. Collectively, they aimed, they looked ahead, at ways to work with nature they all strive, laid foundations where they and the earth thrive.
want to interrupt the flow of that because, as you'll probably notice very quickly, unlike Caroline, I do not have a way with words. So I'm trying to let the music do the speaking. Those pieces were meant to kind of reflect the weird and wild, slightly even weirder these days weather. And there was a piece in there called The Weather Vane, which you may have now come to realise which one that might be. And then a couple of pieces by a German composer called Viol, who would have improvised them, but unfortunately for us, wrote them down so that we could replicate them. I'll just tell you a little bit about the instrument because I know that it's new to many people. This is a Viola da Gamba, which in Italian just means viola of the legs, and you can see that's how I hold it. It has 7 strings. Usually the strings are made out of animal guts, as would be historically accurate, but since we're in the 21st century, it seems okay to play on these, which are made out of sugarcane, and so a vegan alternative. And they're red, which I think is good. The bow, unlike how a cello bow would be held overhand, I think, and we hold them the opposite way, so we hold the hair instead, and so all bows go the opposite way. And there's frets, so it's like a guitar in that sense, and the intervals are chords with a third in the middle, so it's very good for chords. So the next piece that I will play, I actually wrote myself, and it is a piece that uses lots of chords, and it is called a response. And I wrote this because last year I went on a bit of a journey. I did a concert tour by bike around the UK on Tiffany. And she carried my Viola da Gamba and me about 4,500 kilometres around the UK over 10 weeks, non-stop, playing concerts as far and wide as I could find people wanting to listen to the performances. And this piece is a response to what it all meant, what experiences I had along the way. It's my way of, I think, writing a book, but putting it into music. And so you should hear, I wrote some notes, but I can't. So it begins kind of searching and settling into rhythm. You'll hear maybe pauses where to listen and notice what's around. And then finding community in terms of initiatives along the way, also like finding out about transition and black idea, it's just amazing, things like that, finding hope. And then all the wonderful people you meet along the way. And then the time and tide bells, if anyone knows about these are bronze bells in the, on various beaches around the UK coastline, and they are they're beautiful in themselves, and they play when the tide washes water over them. They play a kind of slightly ominous sounding bell, but they're very beautiful as well. But they're to highlight coastal erosion, our relationship with the land and the sea. And I visited several of them on the way around, and they seem to have been something that they've become a feature in this piece, but not deliberately. This piece I actually wrote back in January in a freezing cold barn, looking out at Lindisfarne under the Wolf Moon, and saw the Wolf Moon, and it was pretty amazing. And I had a deadline to finish writing the piece, so it was quite suitable. Having said about ways of words and playing music, I will stop talking and I will play you a response, and I just enjoy it. in that I just have to like allow. And yeah, one of the reasons why I do what I do and continue to tour by bike and play in places that are kind of off the beaten track. I mean, part of it is that I love riding my bike and it's just a great excuse to do some angles. But it's also because live music is so valuable and it brings so many people together, and it is like the perfect opportunity to meet, communicate and express what you want, and music is easier for you than speaking, so I get a lot out of this as well. The next piece is a plant, if I said that correctly. It's a French saraband, and it's to take you on a little kind of dreamy journey. Usually my program is a little bit more depressing. I try to turn up the hope, but this instrument lends itself to quite depressing music, so it's been quite difficult. So you'll have hopefully a little dreamy section with the plant, and then a largo that I'm going to play picks to take you out of the dream into a Gaelic song that translates as My Mother, and it is a song written by Neil McLean, who is from Tobermory, but I heard it on the Outer Hebrides, where it seems that there's been a lot of connections with the Outer Hebrides, people that I've either met or I met a cyclist the other day who stopped me, who his friends had seen me there, and I'd seen people on the Outer Hebrides who then came to a gig in Bristol, and then Stefan over there, who we cycled in the Hebrides at the same time and experienced the most horrendous weather. It's kind of close to me, and yeah, so there's a lot to thank the Outer Hebrides for, particularly this tune, and I think we'll do it justice to learn it by ear, which is something that as classically trained musicians we don't find that easy, what we've got to speak from. But yeah, and it's it's kind of a song about money in a way, and I just think it's really beautiful. And that's kind of one voice, and then it goes into Ibrahim, the human voices, and to me it's just one voice becoming strengthened amongst many others. And those are kind of my two favourite pieces, I must admit. And then they will lead into a Passagalli, gathering some momentum, a little Italian ground. And then finally a piece called The Spirit of Gambo. You'll know when we've got to that one because it just sounds like The Spirit of Gambo. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for coming to listen. Also, one thing that caught my eye earlier is the number of bikes out here, and it's just incredible to see so many people who come by bike, and I think this is kind of the future, so please encourage more people to do the same. The first piece that I'll play is Agori from Bach's Cello Suites. It's from the second one, and it's written for cello, played on the viol, sounding slightly like the guitar. The second linking piece is called The Guitar, written for viol, sounding, I'll let you decide. And then it goes into a piece called Good Again. Good Again was written by Tobias Hume, who wrote The Spirit of Gambo. And his piece, this piece that I will end with, inspired the whole tour and just the way in which I continue to reach audiences. And it was just basically raising the question of how we can make good again, basically. And I tried to look at how I could do that as a musician, and would encourage listeners to think about the question. But I think there are a lot of people doing a lot of good, and I hope to end this on a positive note. So thank you.
thanks again to Sarah and Caroline for a fantastic And I didn't actually ask if you got an encore prepared. Could we persuade you? No. Yeah. What do you think?
Okay. Thank you.
Sonnet to Triodos.
The earth breathed deeply beneath windy hills. Rain clouds flew, water fell, a river grew. In swam fish exchanging air through their gills on the banks. Trees lay roots, drank in the view. Displaying branches of thanks, their leaves sent oxygen back to the sky. Where birds' lungs sang songs to the sun, and on each day went. Each of those who gathered heard the wind's tongues teaching how to plant and grow energy. Harvests from sunshine, air and water fed into homes which built a community. Collectively they aimed, they looked ahead, at ways to work with nature.